that I wanted to talk about is how to measure your performance. So let's say you're out there and you're running and you don't know if you're getting any better, or you're doing some training program. It's good to have some ways of measuring how to do better. Or maybe you're like me and you're getting older and you're thinking like, well, I'm just old and I can't improve. Well, it's probably not true. And on the topic of aging, it's kind of, people say you get slower as you get older, you get weaker as you get older. Well, that's only true if you ever reached your peak potential in the first place. If you've trained like an Olympian and gotten as much as you can possibly get out of your body, either with a coach or just by really pushing yourself hard throughout your life, you will slowly get weaker and slower. But most people have never gotten to that point, like me. So you always have a chance of improvement if you have never reached your potential. So it's only been in the last 2 years that I started doing speed training. I've never once tried to run faster, but I started doing speed drills and doing a few other training drills, doing an exercise class instead of just running all the time. And just this last February, I ran my fastest marathon in the Austin Marathon in the last 6 years. So instead of getting slower with age, I've gotten faster because I put some effort into it. And I'm not fast by any means, so I could probably still get a whole lot faster if I put in the work. But here's some tests you can do to measure your fitness. And you don't want to do this every day, but every week or two, if you have some tests you do, then you can see as you go along. Some weeks you might get a little worse, but then you might get better. And over 6 months, you're going to see your improvement. One is running at your aerobic threshold, and that's the MAF test I talked about before. Your aerobic threshold, as you start to exercise harder and harder and harder, there's some point at which you can basically go forever, but then when you cross that threshold, you start to get some lactic acid building up, you start getting sore, feeling the burn, and you start burning out. So the point right before that is called your aerobic threshold, and that's essentially your forever pace. So if you just use the Maffetone method and say 180 minus your age, so you're 50, 180 minus 50 is 130. If you have a heart rate monitor and go at 130 beats per minute or below, that's where you're going to get a lot of benefit. And over time, it takes maybe 6 or 8 weeks or even longer. Like I'm still improving now, even after 2 years, by doing most of my runs at that pace. But what you can do is you go out and test it. I like doing it on a treadmill because it's very consistent and it's always in the same environment with no wind, so you can really measure. There's less noise in the data that you get, but you can do it out on the trail. But what you do for this test is you get warmed up, which means at least 10 minutes probably of running. Once you're warmed up, you go at your right heart rate, and you need a heart rate monitor. Or you do it on a treadmill, and most of them you can grab on and it measures your heart rate. So when you're running at your 130, if you're 50 years old, at that heart rate, you run for a few minutes and see how fast you're going. You'll notice over the months, you'll get faster and faster and faster at the same heart rate. And the heart rate is pretty related to your exertion level, so it starts getting easier and easier to run faster. So that's one test you can do. Another test is your high-end speed, a sprint test. The older you are, the more you don't want to do this unless you're really warmed up. But a lot of times after I've run a couple miles, then I'll just slowly ramp up from there and I'll go as fast as I can go, but not flailing because I've hurt myself that way. But if you can run as fast as you can go where you're feeling really good and powerful and happy, you might only be able to do it for 10 or 20 seconds, but that's fine. You see how fast can you go. And I used to be able to get down to 6.5 minute miles, which I never thought I could have run that fast. But now I can routinely get below 6 minutes, faster than 6 minute miles. Again, only for 10 or 20 seconds, but it shows that you've now trained your body to be faster and more responsive. So you have that speed and you can see that improve with time. Another test is to do a time trial, and the distance that you pick isn't as important. It's an in-between distance. So you want it to be half or a quarter of your normal longer run. So for marathons, they say a mile is a good time to do. Even once around the track, a quarter mile, do a quarter mile after warming up and see how long it takes you. And the goal is to run it hard, but not so hard that you die and can't finish it. So you'll just learn and you get better really quick, but then as you keep doing it, you can get faster and faster little by little, and that's another way to measure your improvement. Another thing you can do is check your resting heart rate in the morning. The better aerobic shape you're in, the lower your heart rate will get. So checking it first time or in the morning, you can just do it with a watch, or you can wear a heart rate monitor. I've done that, and I've noticed that sometime during the night, your heart rates will drop really low to the lowest value it does. So you can track that with time and see your heart rate dropping down and down. I think Lance Armstrong's resting heart rate was supposed to be 36 beats per minute. So it's something you can track. Then there's something that I don't have a lot of experience with, but there's test setups out there called heart rate variability. But when you're in good health, good shape, your heart rate changes the rate. It beats faster when you're inhaling and slower when you're exhaling. It just shifts around. If you have a thought in your head, it might speed up a little bit. And there's a lot of variability, which means you're healthy. There's trackers that you can wear, or there's even one on your phone where you put your finger on the flash and the camera, and it will monitor your heartbeat for a certain amount of time and measure the variability. When you get stressed, if you work too hard, if you're not getting enough sleep, if your fitness level is dropping, your heart starts to beat very, very rhythmically, and it loses all its variability. So when you're laying there, your resting heart rate in the morning will just be incredibly like a metronome. So it's not so much what the number is, but how does it change with time? So that's something you can check also. So if you want to measure your performance, these are some tips you can use, and you can also make up your own. Think of in terms of progress months to month, not day to day, because everybody has good days and bad days, or whatever you ate the day before might be affecting you. And if you're not getting results, then change something. Or if you're doing a training program and you're starting to notice, hey, I'm getting slower when I'm running at my regular heart rate, well, then you know something you're doing there. Either back off somehow, or maybe you're doing it too often. So just play around with it and have fun. But when you can measure things, that usually gives you a feeling of confidence when you start to see improvements. So just in summary, running is one of the best exercises you can do. And people say, oh, I can't run because I have a bad knee. It's like it's not true. There's people out there with knee replacements that run 100-mile races. All you have to do is get out there and do it, but stay in your happy zone. Have fun. Don't be pushing yourself to where you're miserable. And in general, running is one of the best things for your health. Not only does it help your aerobic system, but that bounciness, especially if you're running off the road sometimes, that improves your balance. Older people that get out on trails or that run have much better balance. They're less likely to fall. It can help you in weight control. I mean, there's also 300-pound people that are perfect marathon runners and are in great shape. So it's not all about the weight, but it will definitely improve your heart and your lungs, and you'll tend to be healthier and happier. And then, you can go out and do an event and get medals. I have a wall full of medals. It's just fun, so keep it fun.